As your business grows, you will experience more and more opportunity, more and more distraction. It's critical that you stay focused on only those projects and activities that will bring you the greatest results. Use this exercise to focus yourself and your team on the critical projects and opportunities to pursue. Now, a lot of people who are growing businesses, the opportunities just overwhelm them. It's just too much to see them all. What do I do? I mean, do I focus on the opportunities for tomorrow? Do I focus on today's opportunities? And this is my version of a good way to prioritize and think about all the different things that you can work on. You'll notice there's a little blue tab next to each headline. Okay? So the first category is strengthen and streamline money-making. Streamline and strengthen money-making. Start with your money-making, then streamline, automate, delegate, scale, and optimize. Now, you remember we defined money-making before as those activities that are the things that ring the cash register. And they're typically at the fringes or almost external to your business. They're things like a great marketing process that you developed that just runs and just works. An ad that happens to convert, a website that has traffic come to it and the process just works. An upselling process that you use during the transaction. You sell one product, then you sell another product, and it's a curriculum. And once a customer comes in and finds out about all of them, then that's it. They just buy a bunch of them. That's the money-making stuff. And then the business is the base of the pyramid that supports all of those money-making activities as a distinction. We identify them, we talk about them as our secret sauce. So streamline and strengthen money-making. Now, what is streamlining? Streamlining is removing some of the friction from the process. If you're running and you've got barbs on you and it's catching on things like Velcro, you want to start pulling those off. Look at the process of how it works and look at where there are sticking points and look at where it falls over. You remember Scott here was talking about the, I think it was the plastic surgeon who said, oh, we got a ton of business from referrals and we do a great job at it. And he said, okay, well, let's call up your office manager. And the office manager said, yeah, we asked for referrals 7 out of 10 times with clients. And the client did the math and realized that because they thought they were doing a great job, but they were only doing it 7 out of 10 times because they didn't have a system, that they had lost $2.2 million in sales. Ouch. That's a streamlining thing. Just putting a little system in place to make sure it gets done every single time. I guarantee you that in your money-making processes, you have things that can be streamlined. And you have optimizations you can make. And then strengthen. What does strengthen mean? Well, maybe you can put a more industrial strength system in to support it so that it can process more. It can do it faster. It can do it more efficiently. Make the process stronger so it can handle more throughput. Does that make sense? Good. I think it's a good idea to maybe have 60% of your focus on strengthening and streamlining the current money-making systems that are running and bringing money in. That's most of your time. Most of your time, effort, energy, results, internal resources. In other words, take care of what's working. Don't abandon what's working. Identify it, talk about it, make sure everybody in the company knows not to screw it up. I've had experiences in our business where we'll have someone make some change to one of our websites or some of our copy or something, and I'll come back and I'll say, what were you thinking? And they go, oh, I don't know, it just didn't look good. I wanted to make that tweak in design. I said, well, that thing right there that you changed is like our lungs or like our kidney. Like everything that happens in our business goes through that process, and you just tweaked it without thinking about it. Did you ever think about that? The person says, no, but I made it better. If you say to the group, and of course my team right now wants to slap me because I've said this a little too much, I say things like, before you change any piece of copy that's going to go in front of customers from the brand that I created, that's my voice, just run it by me. Shoot me an email and show it to me. Now, is that micromanaging? I don't know. What it is for me is a control that's in place that makes it so that people don't screw with the stuff that's working without asking. And people do these things innocently. They're doing it to help. They're doing it to try to make things better. So, strengthen, streamline money making. You got to identify it first. Second, develop your discoveries. Do you remember I talked about how success is this weird paradox of creating the future and discovering the future? An image that came to me when I was thinking about this is that in life, in the staircase of life, the next stair is usually lit. And then maybe one that's way, way up high. But all the rest in between, we don't know. They're just not lit up. And you can't see what the one after this one is until you get up onto that one. There's a huge element of discovery that happens. You can't see what the next one is because you haven't learned the lessons you need to learn and you don't have the tools. Who got up to the next step with the see-through and the customer avatar paradigm? Who got up to that next step with customers? Okay. Let's try that again. Who got up to the next step in some way with that paradigm? Okay, good. You couldn't have seen that step without that model, without that training, without that input. So please be open to doing this in your own life, with yourself. Know that to get to the next step after this one that you see in front of you, you need to get up onto that one. And so with this piece, we're going to develop what we have discovered. You've discovered some things recently that could be opportunities. You've tested them. It looks like that they could really go and they could become big. But you don't want to stop all of this money making that you're already doing. You want to make sure and do these things at the same time and only dedicate a little bit of your resources. So, what opportunity have you discovered that is worth developing? And then finally, seeing a future reality to create. There's a website, and they've even written a book, or had a series of books, and they go and they ask the eminent scientists of today and thinkers, and this is an ironic thing to ask scientists, but it generates great answers. They say, what do you believe but you can't prove? What do you believe but you can't prove? Scientists come up with things about what they believe about psychology or what's going to be discovered inside of humans and all kinds of great stuff. What do you believe but you can't prove? And I think when you ask yourself that question, you realize that you figured some cool stuff out that other people haven't seen. You can see a future to create that other people can't see. And these are the things that deserve a test. When you ask yourself, what do you believe but you can't prove about the future, then you can start working on it a little bit. And that might be 10% of your time. And you can see there's a little blue tab next to each that talks about where to put your focus. What do you believe but you can't prove? And by the way, this is the fun stuff. This is the stuff that keeps you inspired. This is the potential home run that you're going for. You hit that one out of the park, boom, it's over. That's a rocket ship right there. And this is the place where you look at trends that are coming together and you say, hey, if this one intersects with this one in a few years and we were ready for it, oh man, that could be huge. We were the only one there. Altitude came from seeing this future reality. That's truly where it was born from. I could see that there really wasn't a place that this information that we're talking about here was being shared, because most of it I'd never really heard of and said in quite this way. And I saw how valuable it was to us, and I saw that we were building our team using all of these unusual methods about respecting the individual and kind of self-organizing teams and stars and all this stuff. I saw it happening. I thought, if other entrepreneurs knew this stuff, I just believe that they'd want to have it. I think they'd want to be exposed to this. I think they'd want to save themselves 5 or 10 years of hassle and money and whatever to just get the stuff right up front. And there was a lot of testing and a lot of trying stuff out and a lot of controversy, a lot of I mean, inside of our team, several people just kind of said, that just seems like it's weird, it's out there, but I really, really believed in it. And we did some tests, and they kind of kept working, and I justified at least to myself anyway, justified the decision to keep pushing forward, and I think that we're getting some great results right now. But that's where this was born from, was there. So here's what I'd like you to do. In each of the boxes, write down, so at the top one, write down your top 3 to 5 money-making activities. What are the systems? What's the money-making in your business? Where does it come from? The stuff you do not want to screw with, and the stuff you want to start telling your team, look, here's something that we don't want to mess with. This is a model that's working. It's an advertising model, it's a marketing model, it's a set of products, it's a curriculum. Whatever it is, we do not want to screw with that. And in fact, we want to streamline it and we want to strengthen it. And we want to put some optimizers on it. 3 to 5. Next, one opportunity you've discovered. You've tested it, you've got some results, and it looks like it could be really good for the future. Develop your discoveries. And then finally, seeing a future reality. What do you believe but you can't prove? Just start with that question. So that's a great exercise to do on a regular basis, the road ahead, just to refocus your priorities. The next one, I want to teach you about a method of thinking that I call inevitability thinking. In order to make an outcome as close as possible to inevitable, it's important to utilize and incorporate the best actualization tools that have been discovered. Follow this method when working with a group of 2 or more people to achieve maximum effectiveness and efficiency of the group. The key element in this exercise is the conditions and structures that must be put into place, so pay careful attention to that step. That's step 4. Here's what I've learned about actualizing things and making them real. And we got to jam through this, so please pay close attention. You remember I mentioned that some people are problem solvers. In fact, most people more identify themselves with solving problems than setting goals. Well, I think it's important to have both muscles strong. If you start with problems with the group, though, and you say, what are the problems we're dealing with, the group will be able to identify with and deal with that better, typically, and it stimulates a brainstorm, and it kind of gets it off everybody's chest. Blech. Now, most entrepreneurs don't want to hear about the problems because we're not problem-oriented. We're solve-oriented, and we don't like the group getting negative. But this has it's like a cathartic effect that it has on the group when you start with the problems because you get all that negative stuff out. Blech. So, what are the problems? And then next, you want to start with, or you want to go to, what are the goals, what are the objectives that we want to create? Does that make sense? So we start with the problems we want to solve, and then we move to the objectives or the goals. The other person gets what they want and what they need, and they get that stuff off their chest, and then we go to the goals. So do you understand, starting with a group, start with the problems first, so that everyone gets it off their chest, and then we move to the objectives. What is it that we're really trying to do? And we talk about those things. You understand that 2-step formula? Start problem, move to objective. Okay. Now, the next thing that you want to do, and this is the key step here, is instead of going right to action steps, which is what most people want to do, especially most strong, organized business people, you have to ask yourself, what are the conditions that would need to exist for the thing that I want to have happen automatically? So let's say that I want to build a complex web page, and it's got a bunch of different things in it. It needs a real technical person involved. One of the conditions that would need to exist would be that we would need to identify and find the person who can do that stuff. And they would have to be involved. That's a condition that would have to exist. And maybe there would have to be a structure as well, because maybe we decide that we're not going to hire them, they're going to be outsourced, and we need to have a structure to have them reporting back to us and so forth. If you go right to the action step, go hire the person, you're not thinking about that this is going to be a condition you're going to be working within. And when you think strategically, thinking about how things are going to happen in the future, and you think about putting conditions together so that it happens automatically, it does something very important for you individually. It gets your mind out of thinking that you're going to do it. You understand the distinction there? What conditions and structures need to be set up? Your mind goes right into, I've got to set stuff up so it happens automatically. It's a critical distinction. It's very important if you want to evolve and succeed as an entrepreneur. And then finally, it's action steps after that. Problems to solve, goals and objectives, conditions and structures, then go to the action. Okay? And this is a small outline. This is part of something that would be much bigger and much deeper. Okay, now flip your exercise over. So when you sit down with a group to do this, we add one more step because you need to get the group started off in the right direction. You don't sit down with a group of 4 people and say, what are our problems? There's a little rapport building that needs to happen. And this is also important because it sets the stage correctly. What we know, what we've learned. Begin with any data, test results, or research that you have available. So, what do we know? What have we learned so far about this thing that we're trying to do? And start with data. Not ideas, not with what everybody thinks, not with whether they like the process or not. What do we know? What have we learned? I went to a meeting recently, a big meeting with a big group of people. It wasn't my meeting, but I participated in it. And they thrashed around for a long time. And finally, I said, after a day of this, I said, hey, wait a minute, I've been listening to everything here, and I'd say about 80 or 90% of the issues that are going back and forth and the arguments are all based on opinions and what everybody feels and what they want to do. But I've heard some really good stuff, and I said, there's some great data, but no one's keying in on that. Here's what we've learned. And I said, this is where the project is at. This is the results that are coming in. Here's what the data says. You have a lot of success here that you should be developing, and no one is focusing on that. Everyone's focusing on their ideas and their opinions. So if you can start with what you've learned and what the data is, and then move to, okay, now what are the problems? Now what are the goals and objectives? Then what are the conditions and structures? And then move on to action steps. And you can manage that process. It will help you. It will help the group. It's a little 5-step maneuver that done exactly in the right order. If you can keep everyone on track as the leader, I think you'll find you'll be able to make kind of project planning, group discussions go much faster. So just quickly, because we don't have time to dig into this one, just take 1 minute, pick a project, something that you'd like to do, or something maybe you're working on right now, you're planning on. And again, like I said, I'll give you an electronic set of these so you can print off these exercises later. Okay. Randy Watson. So write on this. We're just going to take about a minute or so and get a little bit of practice.